Let me just start off by saying that I absolutely love Target. I'm not sure what it is. It's like the ambience, the aura of the entire store. I've gone to the point where I would even like rent out an entire aisle and just live there. Not even the good aisle with like the action figures. If they wanted to rent me like, I don't know, the aisle with the cleaning supplies and toilet paper, I would totally take it. And if you think Disneyland is magical, try spending a couple of hours at Target. That place is truly on another level. But anyways, enough kissing up to Target. They're not sponsoring this channel. I'm not sure why I started the intro that way, but let's get straight into today's video. This isn't like a super intense, well edited video or anything along those lines. It's pretty basic. It's pretty loose. I just wanted to talk about some Build-A-Figures that I think we desperately need reissued or re-released. In some cases, they're actually still available at a decent price. Like some of these are still going for about $40 to $50, which isn't really that bad for a Build-A-Figure, but still, I feel like a lot of these need to be reissued or re-released. Hasbro has been doing this for quite some time, where they take a Build-A-Figure Marvel Legends action figure and then re-release it as a deluxe. Usually they'll include like an extra accessory, an alternate head sculpt, a different color palette, you know, some minor little tweaks or upgrades, and then just reissue the exact same action, or I should say a version of the original action figure. They did it with Kingpin, where it was a Build-A-Figure, then they re-released it and then reissued it in that retro carded line. They did the same thing with the Rhino, who was initially released as a Build-A-Figure, then they re-released it as a retro carded single release. They also did the same thing with different versions of Thanos. I think we've received like maybe 4 to 5 different iterations. There was the Children of Thanos 5-pack, there was a Build-A-Figure, there were a couple of other 2-packs that they released with, I think, an MCU Iron Man. So all of these do get that treatment, and so a lot of these I think are due for one, especially considering they're semi-affordable on eBay, but I still believe that there's a huge opportunity for Hasbro to turn around and capitalize on some of these action figures. I think there's definitely a collector's demand, and some of these people will definitely be open to some minor upgrades, whether it's like pinless tech or a different head sculpt or a different accessory. I definitely feel like it's time to get some of these reissued and into the hands of not only old collectors, but also new collectors for sure. But let's get straight into today's video. The first one that I wanted to talk about is Monger, which was released all the way back in 2012, 2013, I think, around that time frame. The price point on this particular Build-A-Figure does have a pretty wide range. I've seen it for as low as like mid 60s, low 60s to about like 80, 85. It just depends on the condition. This is one of those that I do feel needs a little bit of an upgrade. It is definitely an older action figure. If I'm doing math, it's like 12, 13 years old. So if you want to, you know, maybe make some additions or some alterations to some of the sculpt work, maybe some of the articulation, throw in some extra accessories, maybe a wash, something crazy. But yeah, it's crazy to think that this figure is that old. It feels like just a few months ago we saw it at, you know, like our local Walmart or Targets. But it is definitely an older Build-A-Figure. It's definitely going to need some massive upgrades. I would also love to see them re-release the Marvel Legends Build-A-Figure Sandman. We did get the retro-carded animated version, which was a great figure, a great addition to a lot of different displays. However, as great as that figure was, I still feel like we need that deluxe Build-A-Figure feel to it. I'm not sure if they would just re-release that old figure because it has some really outdated technology. We also got the live-action MCU version, which was pretty good as well. I mean, you know, if you want to throw it into your display, it is lacking a little bit of detail all around. So, you know, but it does fit into multiple different displays, whether it's live action or comic book. I think you can throw it into multiple different areas of your collection. However, I do want to see like maybe a deluxe version. I would even push that as far as saying like a maximum Marvel Legends Sandman, maybe a bunch of extra accessories. I don't know if you guys remember the Marvel Select Sandman, but that one actually had a removable mid torso. So there was like a lower torso that was like a swirling like sand effect piece almost. You would take the lower torso with the legs off, and then you would place the top portion of the Sandman on that base, and it came with a bunch of like interchangeable hand swappable hand pieces that had a bunch of like sand weapons It was just an absolutely phenomenal release. I kind of want something like that for the Marvel Legends line. That Build-A-Figure is extremely old as well. If you guys are looking to purchase it right now, you're looking at about like 100 to about 120, 130. It just depends on the seller. But I will say this is one of those that I personally would hold off on. Not only is it extremely expensive, but I do believe there's something right around the corner. Be patient. I think Hasbro is working on something behind the scenes. We did get that retro carded version, but Sandman is just a hot commodity. Any villain that is Spider-Man related usually gets quite a few releases within a very short span of time, and I think this is definitely one of those prime candidates to get a reissue within the next few months or within the next year or so. Then we have the Armadillo Build-A-Figure, which was released way back in 2021. I continue saying way back, even though it's only been like 5 years ago. What's crazy about this one, I believe this one mostly had a bunch of Spider-Man villains, and it also was based on some of the figures in the Build-A-Figure were from the live action, I want to say Far From Home live action MCU film. So it was not really that sought after. If you're looking to purchase it at the moment of this recording, you're looking to pay about 50 to 60, but this is another great candidate to be placed in a very deluxe setting. Maybe some extra accessories, things of that nature, some minor little upgrades, or as I mentioned previously, just a quick little repaint, a wash on it. Why pay $60 for technically a used action figure when Hasbro could, potentially offer it for like $40 to $45 in a deluxe packaging? I think this is another great figure that maybe a lot of new collectors that are just jumping on within the last couple of years would definitely need or want in their display. And for all of those big X Factor fans out there, back in 2020, we did receive the Strongman Build-A-Figure wave, and I'm pleasantly surprised with this particular Build-A-Figure because it's readily available. It's about like $60-ish. Some of it ranges. I've seen it for as high as like $80, but I think if you're patient, if you win like a bidding war out there, you may be able to find it for as low as $50. I can't quite remember if they've reissued or re-released this particular Build-A-Figure. I'm going to assume that they haven't unless I missed something, but this is another one of those characters that I think definitely feels like it has a little bit of a cult following. Not everybody knows who Strongman is, but those people that are hardcore collectors, especially of the X Factor universe, they definitely need something like this in their display for sure. Then we also have the Gamerverse Abomination action figure. I've seen so many different people actually customize this one and turn them into like the DC Multiverse Croc action figure. It's pretty cool. You guys should actually look those customs up. But this one was another one that kind of flew under the radar a little bit because that Gamerverse wave did not sell incredibly well. However, the figure itself is actually pretty cool, and I would like to see them maybe retool it somehow, maybe make it look a little bit more comic book accurate, although at that point I think you would just have to, like build a brand new figure from head to toe. But this is definitely another prime candidate because we just don't have a lot of Hulk villains. If you guys have noticed, we do get like a leader here and there. We do get a red Hulk once in a while, but Abomination, who's supposed to be one of the biggest villains that is always fighting Hulk in the comic book universe, never really gets a lot of love. And it's kind of sad that the only like modern day Abomination that we've received, at least from Hasbro, has to be something that is based in the video games. It's really sad. The amount of disrespect is absolutely insane. This was released back in 2020, so it's definitely been, at least a decent amount of time. I think it's definitely a really nice window for them to decide to re-release. If you're looking for this particular figure, you're looking to pay about like $50 to $60. So as I mentioned, still kind of affordable. Most deluxe figures that you're going to buy directly from Hasbro are about $40 to $45. So $50 isn't too insane. If you guys want just a basic representation of Abomination in your display, regardless of the source material, I think this is a perfect collectible for you. Moving on, we're going all the way back to 2017. If you guys remember that Lizard Build-A-Figure action figure, not only just the Build-A-Figure itself, but that wave was an absolute banger wave. I think that's the one that had Spider-Punk and Spider-Man Noir. There were some great characters in that lineup, but that particular version of Lizard is actually selling at the moment of this recording for about like 130 to even as high as 150. I've seen some listings a little bit higher, but that's just absolutely ridiculous. On the lower end, still, you're going to be paying about like 120 to 130. I do believe that I don't know if it was a retooled version or if it was a reuse of that particular body mold, but I know they had that Walmart retro carded version not too long ago, but that one was just too accurate to the source material, which I think was based on the animated series. We need something that's more comic book accurate, and that particular version, the Build-A-Figure, I think was absolutely phenomenal. Great sculpt work all around. You could give it some minor little updates here and there, maybe some pinless tech, maybe even a soft lab coat, just throwing it out there. I would love to see a brand new Lizard. I think, us Spider-Man fans definitely deserve one like this, especially considering on the secondary market, this figure is going for just astronomically high prices, triple digits all day long. And then if you are a big fan of Alpha Flight, you have Sasquatch, who is going right now for about like $65 to $75. It's another one of those kind of obscure characters, I guess, if you don't really read comic books. He hasn't really had a live action appearance or even been featured in a lot of big comic book runs. So I feel like he's one of those that kind of flies under the radar a little bit. I could be mistaken, but was he featured in a 5-pack somewhere? Maybe, perhaps, I don't quite remember. I will say this is another one of those that deserves a little bit of love. Just some minor little tweaks here and there, maybe a reissue, especially considering that it's closer to like that $70 price point. Once you start getting to like the 70s, the 80s, I think it's time to reissue that figure because there's definitely the support for it. There's the demand for that particular collectible, and people are willing to up the eBay prices, and that's usually like a really good go ahead for Hasbro to re-release it, reissue it, or give us an updated version in a deluxe format. Again, going back to 2020, we're looking at Crimson Dynamo, which is a great figure. Honestly, I do actually remember this wave really well. It featured a lot of characters from the Black Widow film, which personally I think gets a lot of unwarranted hate. I think Black Widow is definitely a really, really good film. It's not quite up there with the upper echelon of the MCU, but it's still a really, really good entry into the franchise. And this particular figure has garnered quite a bit of a following. If you're looking to pick this one up, it's about $75 to $85. It's also worth mentioning it's only about 6 years old, so the amount of tweaks or the amount of upgrades that you're gonna have to do to a figure like that probably aren't that massive. It's just maybe like, pinless tech here and there, some minor little tweaks, and then reissue it or re-release it. And then finally, we have probably one of the most epic, most well-known Build-A-Figures of all time, and that is Fin Fang Foom, which was released, I think, all the way back in 2007. Can you even imagine? Can you picture a figure like this being released almost 20 years ago? It's absolutely insane. My tiny little T-Rex brain can't quite comprehend how that is possible. We live in a day and age where Build-A-Figures sometimes are just the size of a regular Marvel Legends action figure. Think about how many times we've gotten a Build-A-Figure that was 6 inches. It's kind of pretty common practice from Hasbro. Sometimes we might get a slightly more deluxe Build-A-Figure, but for the most part, we feel like buffoons for allowing Hasbro to take advantage of us like this. But way back in the day, Fin Fang Foom was a Build-A-Figure. If you guys are looking to actually pick this one up, it's quite a hefty price point. You're looking at bare minimum with taxes and shipping fees and everything. You'll probably be paying about like $380, and in some cases as high as like $400 to $420, just depending on the seller, depending on the condition. It is worth mentioning there was a knockoff being sold not too long ago, I think, online, so just be very weary. If you guys are interested in the knockoff, that one was still available at like high 100s to about $200. So it's just a matter of what you want. Are you going to take the risk with the knockoff, or do you want the original one? But this is just, I don't know, it feels like they could easily just retool this, give it some minor tweaks, and re-release it. They could easily do it as like a HasLab project or one of those made-to-order Marvel Legends action figures that they're constantly throwing out there. They just did one for the Sentinel, so maybe they could do something along those lines. But anyways, I've rambled. I've ranted long enough. This was kind of like a more open-ended type of video. It wasn't as like heavy edited. I didn't want to number any of the entries here today. These are just Build-A-Figures that I think are prime candidates for reissues, re-releases. Let me know your thoughts down below. Did I miss any? Because I'm sure I clearly missed like at least a handful that could have easily been snuck into today's video, but that would just be an astronomically long video. And do you guys know me? Does it look like I make extremely long videos? I don't have the attention span nor the time to be editing gigantic videos. So I guess this is as long as it gets. Have you heard that before? No? Anyways, all jokes aside, thank you guys so much for tuning in. Stay safe out there. Make sure to enjoy the hobby, pose your action figures, play around with them. Make sure to stay tuned to the channel because we do upload rambling action figure content, just random nonsense regarding collectibles pretty consistently. If you guys enjoy this type of content, well, then you'll definitely enjoy what's up and coming. And also you guys can check out our older catalog. I have been going back and like cleaning it up a little bit. There's some videos that I didn't quite like, so I'm deleting them or repurposing the subjects or things of that nature. But for the most part, I want to clean up the channel. I want to just have content that I'm proud of, content that I enjoyed making, stuff that I just don't feel very passionate about or that I didn't like at the time and have grown to kind of hate. I'm definitely going back and just kind of like deleting it or repurposing it for something in the near future. So thank you guys for sticking around. Stay safe, and I'll see you guys in the next one.